The following program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised.
When Nicole Sandler sits down to do her show, she's the producer, booking the guests, pulling the audio, planning the show, the engineer, running the controls, troubleshooting any problems, playing the sounds, calling the guests, and she's the webmaster, writing the blog, posting the podcast, maintaining the website, not to mention the host, interviewing the guests, explaining the issues, giving opinions, and calling out the bad guys, and then you get the Nicole Sandler Show on RadioOrNot.com.
Boy, after listening to that, I need Madeline Kahn from Young Frankenstein saying, "I'm pooped." It's a Monday. I shouldn't start the week tired, but yeah, sleep knows no days of the week or lack thereof. Anyway, welcome to a Monday. I'm going to start we got a really, really busy show for you today. All right. I told you we are going to get down and dirty and find out what the hell is going on with those Hillary Clinton emails. So to help us figure it out is Paul Thompson. Let me bring him on and then explain what is in this Clinton. Hold on, I gotta move all this. Oh my goodness, my board is all messed up. It's the Clinton email scandal timeline. It is a wiki with just tons and tons of information. And good morning, Paul Thompson. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. Thank you for being there. Hold on, I'm going to bring your picture up on Skype. I have 50 million windows open here, so. There we go. There you are. So, Paul Thompson, you're in San Diego, yes?
Yes.
So thank you for waking up early for us. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So you, your website actually is ThompsonTimeline.com, and that's where people can find the Clinton email scandal timeline. But this isn't the first similar timeline you've put together. You actually did something like this once before. What was that timeline?
Right. So, yeah, back in the Bush administration in the 2000s, I put together a timeline. It started about 9/11, and then it moved to terrorism in general, Islamic terrorism, going all the way back to the 70s. And that got put into a book that was put out by HarperCollins called The Terror Timeline, a big 500-page book. So I have a lot of experience with this timeline format.
Okay, so then what prompted you to start working on this Hillary Clinton timeline?
Well, I was listening to what you were talking about a few minutes ago, and I was of a very similar mindset until pretty recently to think that, boy, there's been all these Republican scandals about Clinton that you wonder, is there really any there, like the Benghazi scandal, which I personally think there was not much there. And so when I first heard about the Clinton emails, I thought, well, whatever. It didn't really interest me, and I didn't think there was anything to it. And it was only a couple months ago that I started to change my mind. That was around the time that they announced that some of her emails were actually at the top secret level. And so I started to pay closer attention, and then I just kind of fell down a rabbit hole doing more research. And the more I learned, the more I realized, this is a real thing. This is not some witch hunt, something that's been blown out of proportion. In fact, if anything, what we've heard in the media actually way underestimates the severity of the scandal. So then I kind of looked around and I thought, if I were someone interested in this and just trying to figure out what's going on, where do I go to? What's the resource to figure this out? And I didn't really see anything like that. And I felt it was so important that I was compelled to put this together so that other people who are in similar shoes would have somewhere to go to, in a reasonable amount of time, be able to figure this all out.
So you did it. You actually have 3 different versions. You have the main timeline or short version. You have the main timeline medium version, the main timeline long version, and you write by way of explanation. You say, this is a complicated scandal and there's no way it can be boiled down to a few thousand words. So the long timeline you did first came in at 60,000 words. I mean, you got like a book going here. You said, realizing that's too long for many people, I created a 35,000 word medium version and a 20,000 word version. You said the short version's too short. It's like the Three Bears. Short one's too short, long one's too long, the medium one, just right to at least get you started so you are informed. But you also start with an essay. Is Clinton's email scandal for real? So let me ask you that question, Paul Thompson. Is Clinton's email scandal for real?
Well, before I answer that, I also want to mention I also on the website is a whole other timeline, which is just about the Clinton Foundation, which is a kind of a whole other scandal in and of itself. So people should definitely check that one out. But yes, this is definitely for real. And, it's one of those things where it's like pick your poison. If she's not in trouble for one thing, she's going to be in trouble for another. I've actually identified 6 totally separate areas that she could be in legal trouble. And the media has only been focusing on 1 or 2 of them. So it's really a lot worse than most people realize.
So then, all right. So again, most people don't know all the intricacies and what the problems are. So I'll play, Miss Layperson, because again, the things we get from the corporate media are often not the actual important points, because they for whatever reason want Hillary Clinton to be president, I think. Anyway, so what we're told is important isn't necessarily so. What is glossed over, that could be the important stuff. So let me start asking you questions, and you correct me if the question I'm asking is actually the wrong question, because I may be going down a different road than we really need to go to find out what happened here. But I guess the first part of it is, before Hillary Clinton even became Secretary of State, they installed this private server in their home in Chappaqua, New York. Is that right? That predated her installment as Secretary of State, or am I wrong on that one too?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so when she got to the State Department, they said, all right, now we need to set you up with a State Department email address, and she said, no, I don't want it.
Correct.
And she said, I'll use my home email address because we have a server set up there. Nobody protested then and said, well, no, you can't do that. You need a secure, classified email address.
Right. Well, a lot of people, it seems, didn't actually know that was happening. And that's part of what she could be in trouble for. She had a person named Brian Pagliano who was her IT guy. He was her computer guy. He had worked on her campaign, and he was the one who set up the private server. And interestingly enough, when he joined the State Department a couple of months after she did, he had to sign a form that asked him a bunch of questions. One of the questions was, do you have any outside jobs? And he said, no, I do not. But it turns out he was having a part-time job running her private server. So the fine for lying on that form, it turns out, is up to 5 years in prison. And he had to fill out that form once a year for the 4 years she was there. He lied on it every time. So that shows that there was a real effort from day one to prevent other people within the government from even knowing that the private server existed. Had he been honest on that form, it would have obviously been a really big giveaway about the private server. So that is one of the big questions we have about this, because it has come out that he has made an immunity deal with the government, and there have been reports that said he was a quote-unquote devastating witness.
Wow.
So what would he be a devastating witness about? There was no middleman. His direct boss in all of this was Hillary Clinton. So we don't know what he said in his testimony, but chances are, I think it's logical to conclude that Clinton wanted from day one her emails to be off limits. There's all these they call Freedom of Information Act requests. You have future subpoenas, future investigations. Clinton had been in a lot of scandals before, and she knew that there were going to be all kinds of people asking for her emails down the road. And so I think it's pretty easy to figure out that she decided, how can I do this so that I will not be hit by my emails, after I'm Secretary of State? But ironically, the whole thing backfired, and now it's become this big scandal because she went too far in her attempts to keep everything secret.
So you think that it was set up this way from the get-go so that State Department didn't have access to everything so that she could pick and choose what she gave them?
Yeah, exactly. Or not give anyone anything, which is exactly what happened. I mean, she left the State Department in 2013, early 2013. For the next year and a half, when people would file a Freedom of Information Act request or other things to try to get to her emails, the State Department would always say, there are no emails, 0 results returned, because they were all being held privately by Clinton, so technically they were correct. The State Department didn't have them. And the only reason that changed was because one of the very few good things that the Benghazi committee did was that they had enough clout that when they were formed and they started asking for her emails relating to that, the State Department came back and said, no emails, and that started the process where they pushed and they were able to finally get her to hand over a bunch of her emails. So had it not been for that, we would still be getting 0 results from her emails. I think that was her plan from day one.
I should mention, just because we can and we should, Jason Leopold, who now these days is at Vice News, who has been labeled the FOIA terrorist by the government. He's the one who really started the ball rolling on these emails with all the FOIA requests. So he's like the chief FOIA requester of these emails. And now, have we gotten all of them? I thought the last batch was released, a month or so ago, but there are still lots of questions, aren't they?
Well, there's so many things about the scandal, and one of the things that very few people really seem to be aware of is that there's a big problem having to do with the emails that we have and the emails we don't have. Mm-hmm. So in late 2014, Clinton and her lawyers got together and basically said, let's divide the emails into the personal emails and then the work emails. So she came up with 30,000 work emails and 31,000 personal emails, so basically half and half. And she handed over the work emails to the State Department, and then that was part of the Leopold suit, and they've eventually all been published, and you can find them online right now. Mm-hmm. And then there are these other 31,000 that she then said, okay, I don't need these, and she deleted them all. And well, this is a very controversial thing because it turns out that since that has happened, more and more of these emails keep popping up that were supposed to be personal, and then they turn out not to be personal. I know of at least 5 instances where more have come up. Just a couple days ago, in fact, another 100 of those emails came out because people are putting out other Freedom of Information Act requests. When you email somebody, people on both ends get a copy of the email. So this is such a big scandal that a lot of her aides are being sued for their emails, and they're looking in their inboxes, and they keep finding more and more of their emails. And it turns out, if you look at them, that the vast majority, if not all of those that I've seen, are work-related emails. So right there, you have a potential obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, because this is not just like, oh, well, we missed a few emails here and there, a mistake that anyone can make. I did a calculation because one of these batches of emails that have come out just in the last week was a random sample of the emails of Huma Abedin, who's sort of like her
right hand
person. Mm-hmm. And so you can look at that. If that random sample from all 4 years is indicative, and it's just 1% of Huma Abedin's emails, and then of course Huma Abedin was just one of many people who are emailing her. So you do a little math. I would calculate conservatively that over 10,000 of her deleted emails, at least, are work-related emails. And you can also think, well, if you were under investigation by the FBI and you had all your emails and you thought that you could keep them from anyone else seeing them, wouldn't you be tempted to delete the ones that contain the really damning information?
You think?
So, the potential is there could be some stuff in these deleted emails that is very, very incriminating and that we, the public, have not seen yet. But the FBI has seen these emails because other media reports say, there was just a report about a month ago, for instance, from the LA Times, said that most, if not all, of her deleted emails have been recovered by the FBI. And there was another report, I think it was in Bloomberg News, said that the FBI agents have been going through her deleted emails and sorting them into a work pile and an actual personal pile, which tells you right there that there's quite a lot of those that are work-related.
Right.
So that's, we can talk about a lot of things, but that's one of the many things that she is I think, in very serious trouble about.
So the wiping of the hard drive, deleting all those emails, now you're saying they were able to get them back, or they weren't?
Yeah, because it turns out that it seems like there was some confusion and some incompetence on the part of her tech people. It seems like, for instance, that there was actually 2 servers. Everybody thinks there's just one server,
right.
But there's actually 2 servers. There was one, and then a few months after she was Secretary of State, she handed her server over to this other company, and they didn't like her server. Maybe it was getting old and a little bit wonky, so they got a new server, and they transferred all the emails over to that one, and they kept the old one.
In the bathroom.
So, So when the FBI came to look at the evidence, they found the old server, and then they found the new server, and then it also turned out the company had made a business deal with another company, and that company was making copies of the server once a month in the cloud.
Oh my God!
So every month there was like a mirror image of the server being made. And even the company itself, this company called Platte River Networks, didn't know about this because they didn't pay for it, but it turned out it was just something this other company was doing. And they only found out about it about the same time they handed everything over to the FBI. So I think that the Clinton people didn't realize, they thought, well, we'll delete one copy of all these emails, and they didn't realize that there are actually other entire copies of the server out there, but the FBI went and gathered up all that stuff. So
right. Now again, we're speaking with Paul Thompson. He is the author, the originator of the Clinton email scandal timeline. It's a wiki. It's got tons of information. I mean, be prepared to spend hours and hours and hours going through this. And it is a wiki, so people can add to it if they have information. Do they email you, or do they just upload it? How does that work? How does the collaborative process work?
I want it to be a collaborative project, and there are a handful of people who have joined, but right now we're doing a screening process. We don't want some sort of saboteur to come in. But if somebody comes in and says, look, I'm serious, I want to get to the truth and not sabotage you guys, then they're very welcome to join in of whatever political belief they may have.
Because it's about the truth. It's not left or right. With the whole wiping of the servers, this Hillary Clinton, the way she speaks about it, her sort of, the denials that anything classified, she's like, well, the things that were classified were marked after the fact. Here's my question. If Hillary Clinton writes an email that has like classified information in it, is it her responsibility to stamp it as classified, or is it always done after the fact? In other words, is that defense a moot point because it's like it wouldn't have been marked classified till afterwards anyway? Or was she derelict in her responsibility by sending an email that she should have marked classified?
Well, this whole thing about marked classified or not marked classified is a total red herring, because when she became Secretary of State, she signed a number of documents, and one of the documents basically said, I don't have the exact wording, but it basically said, I am responsible for identifying classified information, whether it's marked or not. And that's very important because most of the information that comes through someone like Secretary Clinton at that time would not be marked classified. Somebody is giving you something hot off the press, some phone call, whatever, you're getting some latest information. There hasn't been time for some censor to go and look at it. And so you have to know if it's classified or not. You have to have a sense of that. And it's actually quite easy because there's some broad categories. For instance, sort of the chief job as Secretary of State is you're like the top diplomat for the United States. So there's a lot of talk with foreign diplomats and other foreigners. And one of the rules is that any foreign communication period is classified. If Clinton talks to some sort of ambassador from Albania, she doesn't have to think, is this important enough to be classified or not?
It should automatically be
that it's classified. And there's all sorts of other rules like that. Like if this is talking about a certain program, that's going to be classified. If it's talking about CIA assets or operatives, it's going to be classified. So you can go down the list, and most of these things are not going to be marked classified at the time, and yet anyone with a brain would immediately know that they're classified. And furthermore, I have gone through these emails, a lot of them, of the ones that have been posted, and some of them are so clearly marked classified that it's almost comical. Like giant, bold, all caps, this is sensitive information, warning, do not share this with anyone, this kind of thing coming in. So when she's saying that, I think she's basically counting on low information viewers, low information journalists who've never actually really looked at the emails and don't know what the rules are. Because, like I said, this is a thing about marked classified is a total red herring.
Right. And then she comes out and says something like this, which to me, this is from August of 2015, a quick 16-second clip. This happened.
So that's all I can say. I'm not, I have no idea. That's why we turned it over.
You were in charge of it. You were the official in charge. Did you wipe the server?
What, like with a cloth or something?
I don't know.
With a
cloth
or something?
Digitally. Did you try to wipe the whole server?
I don't know how it works digitally at all.
Okay, obviously what I don't even know what she was trying to do there, but with a cloth or something? Come on, at this point she knew what the term "wipe the server" meant, and she feigns dumb.
Right. Well, this is a mystery thing. We don't know what's going on with this wiping because, for listeners out there who are not technically inclined about this, you can delete emails in the normal way, like if you've got your inbox and you just hit delete, right? But then there's wiping, which is you go back and you overwrite the data several times to make sure that data could never be recovered. Because when you delete something, it's usually somewhere still on your computer. So one of the questions that we don't know is, was her server ever actually wiped, or was it just deleted in the normal way? And there have been some contradictory media accounts about this. Some reports have said that it was wiped, and others have said it was not. And so, of course, you want to ask Clinton, and the fact that she has dodged this question is very suspicious. And not just her, like her spokesperson was asked around the same time of that clip, and the spokesperson claimed to not even understand what the word meant. So, there's something fishy going on there. And if it was in fact wiped, that would be very important because that would further show that there was a conscious attempt to destroy the evidence so the FBI couldn't get to it.
That's amazing. And this was going to be my next question, is, so what did she do that is an indictable offense? What did she do that we understand she's under investigation, but this has been going on for a long time? I hear some people go, well, Hillary Clinton could be indicted. And I always ask, for what? What was the crime? What was against the law? What did she do that could get her indicted? And for what?
Like I said, so many things. I mean, I don't know if we're going to have time in this show to even go down the list.
Well,
but
let's start.
To give you just one of the things. So the thing that I'll mention this because this is what most people think about and talk about with the scandal, which is the content of the emails themselves. And I think there's a real misunderstanding about this because you have all these pundits who are looking at her emails and saying, well, I don't see there's much in there that's really serious. And so, the chances of the FBI doing anything is pretty small. But they are only looking at the visible portions of the emails. But the really interesting stuff is the classified stuff, which has been redacted. And we as private citizens, we don't get to see. We don't have the security clearances to see what's in those classified portions. And in particular, there are said to be 22 emails that are rated at top secret. And that's a big deal because Clinton's counter argument to this classification thing is she says, well, there's all this overclassification. Things get classified just as a matter of course, and it's run amok and so on and so forth. And there's definitely truth to that, no doubt about it. But there's different levels of classification. And when you get to the level of top secret, when I started doing research about this, I didn't realize just how extreme top secret is. And then there's even above top secret, where that information is so closely guarded that there are secure rooms that are made entirely metal walls, metal floor, and the information is considered so important to safeguard that it's not on any computer. It's never put into digital form because you never know if something can be hacked. So it's written down on paper, and it's never allowed to leave that room. You're never allowed to discuss any of it outside of that room. You couldn't have a couple of top level people with clearances talking about it somewhere else. You can only ever refer to this information within one of these secure rooms. And I could go on with the levels of security that they have about this top secret information, which usually involves, like, let's say you've got a high level mole in Al Qaeda or in ISIS, or you've got some super secret NSA surveillance program or something of this level that the general public has no idea. This is not the kind of thing that you just casually mention in an email. And yet there are these 22 emails. And yet we don't know anything about those emails. We don't know, word one, who sent the email, when they were sent, the slightest idea of what the topics are, but the FBI does. So I think a lot of people are underestimating, because people can only, make an opinion on things that they can touch or see or feel. And when you just don't know anything, you just tend to dismiss it. But we can look at what's in the portions of these emails that we can see, and we can see enough from that to, I think, just from that alone, to think that she is in serious trouble. Like, to give you just one example, a couple of days ago, strangely mentioned kind of as an aside in the very end of a New York Times article, it was said that there are 18 emails that are classified, and you can tell why they're classified. They have different, categories. 18 of them have the category, they're classified because they mention the names of CIA operatives. And you probably remember the whole story of Valerie Plame and what a big deal the release of just one CIA operative is. We could have up to 18 in these emails, and that's not even counting what is in the higher level, such as the top secret emails, which, like I said, we don't even know anything about those. So, we can learn, and I've done a lot of this in the timeline, where you can sort of figure things out, like there's information that's redacted and you look around it and try to guess what that is, who was sending this, who was receiving it. And just from some of that, you can see, look, this is some really, really important stuff. Like, to give you one example, I found one email that was every single word of the email was redacted, except for the subject heading, which just said Rasmussen call. And so that was never mentioned in the media because nobody could figure out what the heck was Rasmussen call.
Right.
But then I looked at some of the other emails from around that time, and it turned out that the head of NATO was a guy named Anders Rasmussen. And there were other emails saying that Clinton was going to make a phone call with him. And this was in the middle of 2001 when the Libya war was going on, which was led by NATO. Mm-hmm. So you could kind of figure out that if she is talking on the phone to the head of NATO in the middle of a NATO-led war, they're going to be talking something about that war. And you can also see other clues in other emails that would be the case. And in the email, this is one of the emails where there's back and forth. So there's actually a lot of text that was written by Clinton that's all completely redacted. So she was, it seems, commenting quite extensively about this phone call in a casual email, which, that is not good. You're not supposed to do that. So, like I said, we can't often directly see, but we can put our thinking caps on and we can look at this stuff and it looks really bad. She should never have been sharing this type of information in her emails.
Right. And she should have had, obviously, a secure State Department email, which we've learned she flatly refused to do. She wanted to do everything on her BlackBerry. Apparently, she wasn't allowed to even bring her BlackBerry into her office. So she couldn't access her emails while she was at the office because the server was at home and she couldn't use her BlackBerry.
Right. This is something that, again, most people don't seem to understand this. The Clinton kind of counter argument is they say, well, Colin Powell, he had some classified emails. Condoleezza Rice, he had some classified emails, which actually is not true. There was no email from either of them that turned out to contain any actual intelligence information at all.
Right. And then when they were both in office, the email was still a very new medium, right? I don't think most of the communications was done via email, although I could be off. I could be wrong.
Right. But, Colin Powell, he had a personal email, but he used it for personal purposes. Right. And then he had a government email, which he used correctly, in his office and so forth, using all the security protocols. Whereas Clinton, she only had one email. And like you said, they even set up a classified email. If you've got classified information, Mrs. Clinton, use this email. It's on a secure network. She never used it a single time. Wow. So if somebody was sending her some classified information, what could they do but send it on this private email account? So the whole thing was set up to, basically be a security disaster from day one. And that's exactly what happened.
So Paul Thompson, when did the whole email issue become an issue? I mean, do you remember what it was that brought it to our attention when someone said, holy shit, Hillary Clinton never had a @state.gov email. She always had her Clinton email, which now we know is in a server in her basement in Chappaqua and then in a bathroom at some, internet hosting company somewhere.
Right. Yeah, that was back in March 2015. There was a big front page New York Times story that broke the scandal. And, I saw that at the time. And like I said, it just kind of rolled my eyes because I thought it was part of this whole Benghazi thing. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until some of these things came out more recently with the top secret emails and so forth. So I've only been doing this timeline for a month and a half. And, I'm trying to get the information out there as quickly as possible because to me, the timing of this is extremely important. If you look at the political calendar, we've got the Democratic convention coming up. And my big concern is, can we get the information about this out prior to the convention? And will the FBI make a decision prior to the convention, because I personally, I loathe Donald Trump. I do not want to see him become president.
Nor do I, right?
And this could really benefit him because he's going on about crooked Hillary, and he's going to obviously make a big deal out of all this and the Clinton Foundation stuff. And so the thing is, will the Democrats wake up, realize that this is a real scandal in time to potentially pick someone else for their nominee? And it turns out that the latest news I've heard is that the FBI is very likely to wrap up their investigation and come up with some sort of decision to recommend or not by the convention. Just a couple days ago, the New York Times said that they should be finished with the investigation within 1 month. They've basically, it's been known for a while now that they've finished all the actual, the legwork of the investigation. All they had left to do was interview Clinton's aides, which they have now done in the last month. And the very last step is to interview Clinton herself. And that's going to come up in the next few weeks, it looks like, and then they're done, and then we'll find out.
Right, good, and all the more reason for Bernie Sanders to stay in the race. I have no idea who you support, if anyone. I'm very open about it. I do support Bernie Sanders. I think he can win. I think it's really important for him to stay in, as he's been saying all along, till every last vote is cast and counted. But also with this hanging over her, anything can still happen. So Paul Thompson, you've read and ingested this and written about it. So I'd say you probably know the story of Hillary Clinton's emails and the whole backstory better than anyone else. Do you think if justice is being served, if all things are fair, and that's a big if, that she will be indicted?
Well, yeah, that's a very big if. That's
a big if.
That's the $1 million question.
That's right.
But there's no doubt in my mind that if she was a low-level employee and she did what she did, that she would be serving serious jail time. I mean, I've made a whole separate timeline. It's a smaller one. It's also on the website of similar cases where you can look in the recent years, other people who have, been in trouble for security leaks, and you can see what happened to them. And one thing not a lot of people realize is that the David Petraeus case, remember, he was director of the CIA, is very similar to this case, because a lot of people say that is actually what he did was much worse, but that's not true, because again, the general belief is often incorrect. And in that case, he gave a bunch of information to his biographer, who was also his lover at the time, and they thought that they got him for that. But no, she actually had a high-level, top secret clearance at the time. So that was not the problem. The problem that they got him on and eventually convicted him on was simply that he had this information, this classified information, in his house in an unsecure manner, which is exactly what happened with Clinton, with the server being in her house in an unsecure manner.
Right.
So if they did that for Petraeus, why would they not do it for Clinton? And there's so many other things. We're probably running out of time, but like we could look at the destruction of evidence with those emails. We could look at the content of the top secret. We could go into whole other areas, including the Clinton Foundation, which is a whole other can of worms. So yes, if they were doing their jobs and looking at the evidence, they could actually, I think, put her away for a long time. This is some very, very serious stuff. People's lives, they're very likely could have been lost because of this. I mean, there are a number of top-level people, former head of the CIA, former head of the NSA, former head of the Defense Department, former head of the DA. All these top people have said that they take it as a given that the Russians, Chinese, North Koreans, etc., have the contents of all of Clinton's emails. And what did they do with them? What did they learn? How much did that cost in terms of broken programs and things that had to be redone because of this massive security leak? So the question then is, it all comes down to FBI Director James Comey, in my opinion. He's the guy who has to sit down at some point and look at the evidence and say, are we going to recommend an indictment for Clinton and or some of her aides or not? and that's hopefully going to happen soon. And then we don't know what he's going to say, because I think the evidence is so strong that he has to say that. But then we're in the middle of an election season. She's the Democratic frontrunner. This has never happened before. The political pressure must be immense to just say, let it slide. And we've seen from comments from Obama that he seems very prejudiced on this. He said some comments, in my opinion, about this that are just outrageous. For one thing, he never should have said anything in the first place. You can remember in so many other cases, people ask him his opinion, and he says, well, I can't comment on
it's an ongoing investigation. Right.
And yet he seems to be quite happy to give his opinion on this. And, he even in his most recent comments said this, which I thought was absolutely outrageous, where he said there's top secret and then there's top secret. There's some things that are overclassified and that really, it's just really shouldn't be classified in the first place. And Clinton's a good person. She wouldn't have made that kind of mistake. And he's never been briefed on what the FBI knows. He's never seen these top secret emails. But he should know that the top secret emails contain information so important. This is not just some busybody bureaucrat just going a little hog wild. This is the crown jewels, the very most important secrets. So you have this concern that there's clearly people within the government from Obama on down who would just like to see this whole thing go away, and they want to see Hillary Clinton become the next president of the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm particularly concerned with the Justice Department because there have been some recent reports. There was this one a couple days ago in the Washington Post that showed some kind of battle going on in this investigation between the FBI and the Justice Department, where the Justice Department, it seemed, had made a deal with one of the aide's lawyers to say, certain things are just off limits. We're not even going to ask questions about that. And then the FBI person didn't know about the deal and started asking questions about it. And the person who was being interviewed, who was Cheryl Mills, the Clinton's chief of staff, got up in a huff and left the room. And, so there's all this sort of like bickering going on between the two departments. But what really matters, in my opinion, is the FBI the Justice Department can do whatever they want. What matters is first step, the FBI doesn't recommend an indictment or not. And I think that if they do recommend an indictment, that will really be devastating for Hillary Clinton's political future. If you're a superdelegate or whatever, and you're looking at this and you find out that the FBI has recommended for indictment, and it could be, that we'll have leaks saying it's on X, Y, and Z, some very serious charges come out. How could her political career survive that?
It can't. Again, which is all the more reason, superdelegates haven't voted yet. They don't vote until the convention. They're going to arrive at the convention very close with pledged delegates, especially if Bernie does as well as it's expected in the rest of the states remaining, including California, where he could basically tie it up. So, look, for anyone who's calling on Bernie to get out, it's stupid on every front right now, especially with this hanging over Hillary Clinton. I love that you say it's going to be wrapped up in the next month or two, because it should be. And actually, that's what the Democratic Party should be pushing for above all else, is a resolution to this so that they know what's going on, because the woman they want to anoint as the nominee might not be available to run, and then what gets me is, of course, all the pearl clutchers. Oh, we need to get Biden back in. No, we have a guy who's, running neck and neck with Hillary Clinton. You've got, he's been working his ass off, as have his supporters, and he's ready to step up. So everything is still in flux.
I want to mention that personally I'm a big Bernie Sanders supporter. I wasn't a year ago. I didn't even know who he was. Wow. I would have been perfectly happy a year ago to vote for Hillary Clinton. But then I started learning about this scandal and the Clinton Foundation stuff. And then I saw this other person who was the exact opposite and about the cleanest politician I'd ever seen in my life. Yep. So the contrast is so dramatic there. So, but you're right. There are people who are talking now who are kind of, it's kind of a bit hush-hush, but they're thinking if Clinton were to go down because of this, maybe they go to Plan B, which would be Joe Biden, and try to have all of Clinton's delegates jump ship and just, go to Joe Biden.
And if that happens, it will be a disaster of proportions. This will take down the Democratic Party. And I think it's sort of like what the Republicans realized with Donald Trump. They didn't want him. But in order to stop him at that point, they would have had to pull some real unfair shenanigans, and they would have split the party for good. So I guess they decided to cut their losses and at least go with the evil, rather than split it in half. If Hillary Clinton is indicted, if something happens, so she can't fulfill the promises of her, crown.
Well, I just want to mention, you've got to be clear with their language. So you say, is she recommended to be indicted? Because then, the legal process is so slow. Then they hand over the Justice Department. Justice Department might take a couple months to make a decision whether indict or not. They might appoint a special prosecutor, which could kick the can down the road all the way past the end of the election. So, it's not so much will she be indicted or not, will there be a recommendation for her indictment?
Right. Yeah, so I hope people, pay attention. I hope they pay attention. Now, then again, this is a Justice Department under a Democratic president and a president who wants to see Hillary Clinton succeed him. So, look, even if it's over, if Hillary Clinton's the nominee and should somehow win the election, which I think is going to be a hard climb for her, then but if the Democrats don't take back both chambers of Congress, then she's still in trouble, because I believe if the Republicans control the House, within 3 months they will start impeachment proceedings.
Well, I think she's in trouble regardless, because if she wins, they're going to do the impeachment path. They'll be able to at least control the House. I think that's almost certain. And so they'll be able to have all these committees and hearings and so on from now until the end of time, leading to impeachment. But, on the other hand, if Donald Trump were to become president, do you think they're just going to let Hillary Clinton go? No, the Republicans hate the Clintons with a passion. And they've been working decades to try to get them, and they will do everything in their power to get them, and I don't approve of their tactics, and this like Benghazi thing is ridiculous, how they beat a dead horse on that. But you can, but that's just how it is. That's what's going to happen if Donald Trump would almost certainly appoint some sort of attorney general whose mission is to get Clinton. In fact, there's been some comments about this. I heard there was a comment recently from Ben Carson, who's sort of become one of Trump's people, who said, first we'll appoint an attorney general specifically to convict Clinton. This is going to be the legal process. People want instant gratification in their news stories, quick turnover, but you could have all these delays and so on and so forth. The trial could go on for years. So this is going to be in the news, and this is going to be a problem for a long, long time. Right, regardless of what happens now. Paul Thompson, we could continue this, and I hope we can, because I still have a lot more reading to do. There's more information coming out every day. It's a changing thing. And this Clinton email scandal timeline at ThompsonTimeline.com is collaborative. So Paul's contact information is there on the website. If you have something to add, I'm sure Paul would like the input. And we'll keep talking about it. It's really important to talk about it, because once again, the corporate media doesn't talk about any of this. This weekend, on any of the Sunday shows, at least that I saw, not a peep about the mess at the Nevada Democratic Convention over the weekend. Nothing. It was all Trump all the time. So right, and I'd add that, as you were saying earlier, that so many of the media outlets have a Clinton tilt to them. And we've seen some articles come out recently. Like there was an article in the Washington Post recently said that there was quote unquote scant evidence to convict Clinton in this investigation. But if you really look at that article and other articles like it, it's clear that those leaks are coming from the Justice Department, which seems very tilted. They're kind of doing Obama's bidding, and they have a very pro-Clinton tilt. And we have not seen really any leaks for quite a while now coming from the FBI. They've been keeping their cards very close to their chest, and which they should be doing. They don't want to be, especially with Clinton being interviewed soon, they don't want to be tipping their hand about what they know about her. But I think that if this story blows up, which I think it will, in one way or another in the next weeks and months to come, there's going to be a big spin war in the media, a war of public perception. And Clinton is a fighter. She's not going to go down easily, as we seen. We were talking earlier about what was happening in Nevada. Mm-hmm. So that's one reason why I'm doing this, is because I have not seen, if someone says, "Is this for real?" Where do I go to find out about it? Because I think this is going to become more and more important as weeks go on, and people need to get informed about the real facts.
Yeah, this is a really, really important resource. And Paul Thompson, that's why the minute I saw it, I'm like, I got to get this guy on the show. So it's only been up, a week or so.
Yeah, right.
Again, it's at Thompson Timeline.com. It'll get you right there to the Clinton email scandal timeline. Paul Thompson, you're not really on social media, so I didn't put anything up there, but that's where you find it. ThompsonTimeline.com. There is an email address, so if you want to contribute or have some questions, Paul, I'm guessing you're open to that, because again, the goal is to get the information out there, and like you said, it wasn't in one place before. That's why I kept going through this, not knowing if it was, if there was any there. Well, now, right. We know there is there, and this, this is, there were laws broken here. There were really important national security safeguards ignored here. And there's a full-fledged investigation, no matter how much she tries to poo-poo it. And, I think in one debate she was questioned, well, you could be indicted. And she almost laughed. She laughed. The cackle. I'm not going to be indicted. Stop it. Well, until it's over, it's not over. So
yeah, and I thought, you kind of have to read the tea leaves here. I thought it was interesting a few days ago, James Comey, the FBI director, he's been very, very quiet. He always says, I can't say anything about this. Mm-hmm. But a few days ago, he said, this is an investigation. It's not a security inquiry. I don't even know what a security inquiry is. And I thought that was a really interesting slam, because that's the phrase that Clinton has been using for months now, is that it's just a security referral or a security inquiry.
Right.
So I think that is a little hint coming from him that there's something serious going on here.
Good to know. All right, so there's your homework, your reading for the week, and there's lots there to keep you occupied. It's at ThompsonTimeline.com. Paul, I thank you so much for coming on today, and hopefully once we've had a chance to digest this and as more news comes out, I hope I can check back in with you. And
sure, please.
Get you to have some extra early coffee. And actually, in a couple of weeks, I'm moving to later in the day, so it'll be easier. Paul Thompson, thank you so much. It was great talking with you. Thank you again for putting this resource together. There's a lot of really important information there that everyone needs to read and share. That's the important part, because we got to get it out. We got to disseminate it. We don't have the corporate media to help us, so it's up to us. All right. Thank you, Paul Thompson. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye. All right, and with that, we are done. It's another day come and gone.